And let me explain just very simply what that means. Going back to our erstwhile table. A table, we said, consists of a board and 4 legs. And if we start examining the table, the board is an obvious part of the table. The legs are add-ons, essentially. What are the add-ons? The legs are in order to hold the board up. So we say one leg holds the board up, no, but then the other side falls down. So in other words, the whole conceptual of this table is a response to a failure. First, I'm going to build the board, but the board is not going to stay up. Therefore, I have to make legs. I make one leg, it's not enough because the other side falls down. So I have to make another leg. At least I have until I have a complete complement of 4 legs. Then I realize, now the table can stand. Therefore, if we're looking at the table from this perspective, the 4 legs are a response to a shortcoming, to a failure of the table to stand. They are not part of the initial design of the table. The design of the table is the board. Then I have to find ways to make the board stand up. This is essentially, it's a little bit, it will require eventually some much more explanation, but essentially this is the mix of toivara. In other words, since we bring the sport table into a world of toivara, it gives support, but it also fails to support. And therefore the table has to support itself in some other way. This is how a table develops on the outside, on the practical and worldly reality. However, as we said many times, a table really is not created by the world, by the outside practical aspect. A table is something that represents human dignity. There's a human spirit behind the table. The table is not just a functional utility. As we pointed out, a person wants to sit with another person, he sits next to a table. Doesn't just sit on a bench. The table is what gets a whole group of people together into a conference. It's called a conference table. And the table unites all the people around it. Therefore, that table, in essence, the concept of the table is much deeper, and it reaches to the essence of the human intellect, rather than its practical use. The way the table exists within its conceptualized level, on the intellectual level, that's a perfect table. That table does not consist of toivara. The legs are not there to support that table shouldn't fall down. The legs are part of the initial design of the table. Of the concept itself. And they fit into the design perfectly. Lahavdil, I should say, just as, let's say, the human being, we spoke about it many times, the human being stands on 2 legs. This thing that the human being stands on 2 legs is representing the fact that the human being stands aloof of the world, doesn't have to lie down on the ground like the four-legged animals. He is supported by his spirit rather than by the earth, by the ground. And even that part which touches the ground also has human significance. It's called netzev v'hoid. He said not just leg to support a person. This is his way of relating to the world. It's part of the initial concept of the human being. Just as he has two hands, he has two legs. This initial concept, as it exists in its source, so again, within our experience in our world, it gets developed piece by piece. But the concept is perfect from the beginning, and in a conceptual level, it actually exists in full regalia. When the Rebbe created the world, he created the world yesh mei ayin. This ayin contains the full design and complement of the world, with all its ramifications. Every last hill, every last lake, every last ocean and river, every last spring and tree and so forth. This is all part of the real concept of what the world is. Rashi says in the Chumash, it's unfortunate, he said, unfortunately, Pashu Bereshis, we hardly have the time to learn. Rashi says that the vegetation was created in the initial thing that created the earth. It created all the vegetation, but they did not protrude out of the ground because there was no point of them protruding out. But within the ground, they were all there. But the was that he was just bringing him forth from their initial existence. The world, the earth was conceptualized by God at the start in the full regalia. This is the real world. Then it develops in our, so to speak, experiential and touchable world. There it comes out in piecemeal, and there's compromises. There's this tree, there is not this tree. Things come piecemeal, come gradually, and so forth. Now, and here's the clincher. Please understand, chochmah and bina. Chochmah recognizes the world from its reality perspective, from its conceptualized reality perspective, how it is conceptualized within its creator. This is what Chochmah book said. Chochmah perceives, going back to our little table, the table with four legs, not as a construction of four legs. This is what a table is. Doesn't have to go around and explain yourself what this is about. That's the phenomenal gift of Chochmah. Chochmah sees things on a nefesh level, not from a practical and experiential level. Nefesh is, what is the perfection? What is this about? What is the reality of it? What is the divine reality of it? That's what chochmah is. Please understand the significance of this. Push on the practical level. We walk around the whole world. We're constantly encountering things that we've never seen before. We encounter it and we absorb it. We are perfectly at home with it. The reason is because we are seeing it not by something confronting us. Okay, what is this about? And how do we deal with this? This is reality. This is the initial concept of what world the Rebbe should put us into. This is what I've been saying the whole time. That chochmah toiferses b'pinas hamahus. There's less words on the previous section, on the top of the section. The chochmah relates to the mahus element. Mahus means the reality. What was conceptualized over here? What is the wholeness of it? This is how chochmah looks at things. It's unfortunate, I have to say, that the world has found a way to attack even the what's called the sight, the chush ha'riyah. Riyah is a reflection on the practical level, on the external level of chochmah. Riyah sees things in the wholeness, but they were able to go and contaminate that. No, you don't see with your eyes. You see because something hits your eyes. Just like the four legs are just an arrow so the table shouldn't fall. Okay, that you can attack the table, but what are you doing with my eyes? This is sight. This is a koyach hariyah that Rebbe gave. It's a godly sight. It's a divine gift. But even that, we found a way to contaminate it to the extent that people who have gone through that process have a difficulty in seeing what chochmah is, what riyah is. They're blinded. This is what we're trying to do. We have to counter this. We have to look at accept riyah as a gift, not as a physical experience. And from this we can understand what chochmah is, and bina, and so forth. So, to summarize and put it, so to speak, pointedly, directly, contrary to what is perceived, chochmah sees things the way they are in their conceptualized level, in their perfect level. How can you see that which is conceptualized? This is still within the conceptualizer. The answer is, the conceptualizers brings it out exactly the way it is in his concept. Because God does not have the limit that he can create a table only by creating a board and then four legs. He creates the whole entity at once. The whole world was created. Everything was there in that creation. As it's supposed to be. This is what a world is. This is what a godly world is. And this is how chochmah perceives it. There's no discovery element in chochmah. It sees the way it is being presented by its creator. And the creator has things in the most perfect and beyond perfect. Beyond perfect, because perfect is talking about coming into being. He has things the way it is in his will. AYIN, the way it comes from his truth. From his truth. God conceptualized a world because a world belongs as a creation of God. And from that perspective, this is how chochmah perceives it. This is called the mahus. There are no entities, there are no pieces. There is no leg that supports and shouldn't fall down. There's no possibility of it falling down. I'm going to say something that's also going to be a little bit of a shot, but as I said, I'm going to say it. From this perspective, you have to understand that even the external world, the structure of the world, the earth and the sky, and the space around it, and the whole thing that we are actually observing, is also a perfect presence. The world has come up with the idea the earth has the gravitational power, pull. What a discovery. The earth has a gravitational pull not because it has gravitational pull, because it's meant to hold up its inhabitants. And its inhabitants belong there. There's no multiple entities that are working on each other. Just as the earth has a gravitational pull that pulls things downwards, the sky has a gravitational pull pulling things upwards. And this is how things exist here, up and down. It's a complete entity. It's one creation. One reality. How can you create one reality of so many disparate pieces? This is a godly creation. This is not a worldly creation. It represents the godly presence in the creation. The Rebbe created the world, and the world is really a super world. It's not a worldly entities, but he created within the world itself all the details that make the world a perfect and complete world, such as gravity. But it's not that gravity is an afterthought, like a fourth leg in the table. It is because the Rebbe created as the world was conceptualized to be a complete and perfect world. That's part of its perfection. So that everything can be expressed on the worldly level. But let it not be misunderstood that it's the world that holding itself up. That's stupid. The reason it has all these qualities is because it complements, represents the godly concept of what the world is. This is how chochmah perceives things. This is what chochmah relates to. Mahus. And here is then the power of this question that the Rebbe presents over here. If this is what chochmah is, it is the mahus, but we need to further understand. But the chochmah is it not that chochmah is also a idea sichlis, a seicheldike knowledge, rather than a super knowledge, of a godly knowledge. It's not a knowledge of faith or belief, of insight beyond my understanding. No, it's a seicheldike. I can understand. A seichel means it can be described on a worldly level. If it's a seicheldike knowledge, that seems to be to be negating the possibility of seeing things from a Mahu's perspective. Seichel does not see things from a Mahu. Seichel sees the Mitzias. All right, this is the introduction. We have a few more minutes. We'll go in a little bit further. I'd like to get some feedback. Do we get the point? Do we get the introduction? Okay. However, it still needs to be understood. In other words, we have a question. Well, thank you. Where did you find it?
In my pocket.
Hold it. I have a handkerchief. But the chochmah is it not that the chochmah is also idea, despite the miraculous, the godly phenomenon of chochmah, it is idea sichlis. It's a seichelic knowledge. Just as our knowledge of the table, we said the table is a complete, total concept from the beginning to end. Or a human being has fallen, two legs and two hands and so forth. This is what the human being is conceptualized before creation. That's a reality. He has to have these two legs not in order to hold himself up here, but that's the full complement of a human being. Nonetheless, as one is created, we have a seichelic understanding of what he is. He said the legs are to hold him up. The hands are to enable him to do things. This is a chitzenistic view of the human being. Because the principle that he's able to do things is part of his initial reality. The fact that he stands on two legs is part of his initial reality, as we explained many times. So chochmah is also yidiyah, but chochmah is also yidiyah sichlis, which means within the chochmah, as we said, this we'll have to discuss. Within the chochmah, the conceptual concept of chochmah, even though you see it from a Mahu's perspective, there is seichelic element flowing through this. Within the chochmah, there is a recognition that it makes sense that he has this design. That's a very not chochmah. The al kol ponim means at the minimum, at least. Al kol ponim means however you will look at it. Means that even though we were contradicting, we say no, chochmah is not a sichlis. Chochmah is higher than seichel. Chochmah is a knowledge of a neshama level. So, but you still have to admit, b'madreges atachteines shebechokmah, that in the lower madrigas of chochmah. What are the lower madrigas of chochmah? Okay, here we'll need a little more time, just quickly. As for example, the nakuda, the point of haskola of conceptualization. The nakuda, the point of conceptualization. One would say nakuda haskola, this is the highest level in chochmah. This is the lowest level in chochmah. Chochmah is part of the neshama. This is already that part of the chochmah that protrudes out of the neshama, that can be consciously recognized. This is the chitzonis, and this is all the madres tachtonis, how it is protruding out. I'm giving you a point. Who needs a point that's outside of its reality? And so in this nakudas, the idea madregas atachvenis b'chochmah, the lower madregas of chochmah, as such as nakudas haskola. Nakudas haskola means conceptualization. Once it comes to conceptualization, it's no longer in the essence of chochmah. Chochmah is in essence part of the truth of the neshama, of a godly truth. Once it becomes nakuda Nekudas hahaskola, nekuda that enables it to define it in a worldly domain. That's a way that's the lowest madrigas chacham. We have to stop for just 1 second and reflect. This is reflect to say that the Nekudas HaSkola is madrigas tachteina shel chochmah. I mentioned many times, that's to illustrate the point, that sometimes you sit and you learn something, and something is being explained, and you have a difficulty to dig in what is being explained, and it goes several gyrations back and forth until the point is brought out. And I say, that, yeah, of course, I always knew it. We've experienced this many times. I always knew it. Well, yeah, I always knew it. Why do you take so much to explain it? The answer is, it was contained. It's not was contained within the essence of your seichel, the essence of your nefesh. It was not something that protruded out of conscious knowledge. But this is how you internally knew it. This is what we said before. We go around the world and we're constantly encountering things that we've never seen before. And we can absorb it. How do we absorb it? How do we feel that this is the same world that we knew yesterday? Because we really knew it before. In the chochmah, the REBBE gave us the knowledge of the entire reality that he created. Then it comes madrigas tachtenis in the low madrigas of chochmah, where we become aware of it. Comes out in the form of an nekudas haskola, and then you have to develop it, so to speak, on the external and conscious level. But essentially, whatever you develop, if you stay true to your chochmah, it will only confirm what you know already. And this is the enormous fallacy of the approach of knowledge as is being practiced in the world. Nobody is here yet, so we can go on a little bit more. At least we can get into this. Interesting to say that Nekudas HaSkola, this is madrigas tachtoines shabal chochmah. If this is madrigas tachtoines, so where is the chochmah hiding before? Nekudas HaSkola, this is the first recognition of chochmah. The answer is, it's hiding within the reality of the nefesh. And in that reality of nefesh, the whole world is known. Not known as a composite of many details, but known from its conceptual mahus, from its conceptualized level. How it's supposed to be. The world is supposed to have hills and valleys. The world is supposed to have rivers and brooks, and clouds, and trees, and big trees and small trees, and high and grass and all that.
And tables.
And tables, ultimately. If it has a human being, it has to have tables.
What's the table doing on a conceptual level? I mean,
I'm telling you, the human being. The table is brought into the world via creation of the human being. Just like the home is brought into the world by creation of the human being.
So a worldly perspective would be that it's a contrivance. It's a invention to.
It's an afterthought.
Afterthought. But so what is it ideally?
Ideally is that this is the complement of the human being. When a human being was conceptualized, it's conceptualized with all the periphery, all the utility that enables human being to express himself in fullest.
And that's to say it has legs as well. It's not.
That's right. 4 legs, absolutely.
But it hasn't yet touched the ground. So, and the man hasn't yet.
Because man was made to be under earth. He created the earth, and the earth has been given the gift of the human being. Yes, indeed, this is a phenomenal thing. They should give the earth such a creature like the human being. This was the last creation, and the human being represents a godly presence in the world. Tamenikid Musain. Thereby elevating the world to a godly status, and to revealing it in the world what the world is. This is what the world is meant to be.
So even up above, the table does not need 4 legs to be stable, yet it has 4 legs for the sake of being the real thing down here.
That's right.
And man up above seemingly does not even need a table because everything is just there.
The word need it doesn't fit. He has.
Okay.
And again, we have the, so to speak, quote unquote, proof of it, that when he sits by a table, he feels perfectly comfortable. You couldn't think of any other way. You sit around the conference table. And that is the way to confer. Okay. So this Nekudas HaSkola, we will just stop here. Nekudas HaSkola, we have to realize that this is Madrigas Tachteine Shevachochm. This is after the chochmah has gone through the entire neshama process, levels, until it actually protrudes out to be effectual and present in the body. So that on the body level we can now perceive chochmah. On the neshama level, it's a completely different concept. The neshama goes straight to the mahus, to the godly reality. Now it's in the body, it has to have a worldly perception. This is Nekudas HaSkola. All right. So this is it for this morning. Now we can.